Hey, Jan Ozer here. I'm speaking today with Jean-Baptiste Kempf, who is founder and president of VideoLAN, the maker of the ubiquitous VLC application that we all know and love. Thanks for joining me today, JB.
Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. Tell us about VideoLAN and tell us about the VLC player.
Yeah, so VideoLAN is a nonprofit based in France, whose goal is to work on open source multimedia projects and develop quite a few libraries, mostly related to codecs, multicast, and of course video playback, which is VLC. We have many other projects, and one of them is David. The VLC code base is not that large, but the user base is huge. We're talking about 300 to 400 million active users of VLC, which is quite large for a very small nonprofit. And VideoLAN does not have any employee, so it's really small organization.
Okay. I mean, it's a program I use. I've got it on every one of my computers, and I use it numerous times a day. Strangely, even though you're competing against Microsoft and Apple, I mean, there's no player that kind of matches the ease of utility and the functionality that yours delivers.
Yeah, and also like VLC changed the landscape, right? Because now, like before VLC, you had to download codec packs, right? And today those are gone, right? No one does that anymore, right? The fact that VLC came with all the codecs inside and it was normal that you could play everything changed quite a bit of things. And a lot of things that happen inside VLC to the FFmpeg community and those also like this is what people are using every day, right? And FFmpeg is absolutely everywhere, right? So yeah, I think that VideoLAN changed quite a few things directly or indirectly, but I think it's quite important.
You've done HEVC for a long time, AV1 since it came out. What are you thinking about VVC? When will we see that in VLC?
VVC is inside FFmpeg 7, so the decoder is our newest decoder. It's not complete. I think there is a few features missing, but most of it is inside. It's still quite a bit slow, but so it's inside FFmpeg. It will get to VLC quite a bit, quite soon. We will have a look at other codecs, like and although EVC is in EVC is also in FFmpeg 7. Then on my roadmap there is LC EVC, NV HEVC, which is also quite important. Yeah, so that's basically the stuff I'm looking at afterwards.
Okay, and what is David, and how does that differ from VLC?
So David is a specific project, right? Because it was started ad hoc, right? And it was not started inside FFmpeg, which is a bit my fault. But my point was that in order for everyone to be successful as a codec, as a format, right, and which we care about, right, because it's an open format. Well, we can debate about how open it is, but it's at least more open than the MPEG-based ones. The idea was that I did not believe the hardware decoders would come very fast when the specification was out in 2018. And so I said, you need a very good decoder, right? Because and I think all the new codecs are going to have the issue is that the new codecs are not codecs, right? They are a collection of codecs, right? They're a collection of tools, right? How many intra-tools, inter-tools are they? How many filters are there inside AV1 or VVC, right? Are you going to actually see CFL, see def, and so on, right? So the thing is, those take a lot of size on the die, right? And I've been working for STMicro a long time ago, right? So my point was that hardware decoders would take a lot of time to come, right? And I say that in the meantime, you need to have a very good decoder. And AV1 complexity is like a lot more than HEVC. It's probably on VVC is even more complex, but doing a good decoder is extremely difficult. So we had to do one early on and optimize it to death. And that was the idea of David. And the thing is, because we wanted it to be as usable as possible and to be used everywhere, we used a very liberal license, which is a type of MIT or BSD license, which is different from VLC, which is GPL, or the engine of VLC is LGPL, and FFmpeg is LGPL, which is something that is not acceptable for many people. But because we wanted, for example, to Microsoft to use that codec inside Windows or Apple and modify it as they want, we decided to have a different license, which is why it's a standalone project, right? Because it needs to be standalone and not contaminated by either VLC or FFmpeg code bases.
So who is using it? Who can you tell me is using David at this point?
The question is who isn't? Jokes aside, it's inside Chrome, which means it's also inside Edge. It's inside Safari for AVIF support. So it's inside basically de facto. It's inside macOS. It's on Windows. If you activate the AV1 plugin, it's basically David with some modification to wrap that as type of NFT. It's also probably on all the Linux distribution because it's part of FFmpeg, which means it's in VLC, MPV. So all major browsers, probably all major operating system. It's soon going to be inside Android ID as default. They used to have a different AV1 software decoder. I think it's part of iOS because of AVIF. So de facto, it's everywhere. The question is more who's actually using it and who's actually streaming in AV1 and in AVIF, not who has the David code base.
Who actually is streaming AV1? I mean, we know the bigs. We know Netflix and Meta and obviously YouTube and Vimeo. But who are the other big companies who either are or, and I know you probably can't break any news, but who can you talk about either is or will be?
Well, that's, in my opinion, that's a problem, right? It's only the big ones are actually deploying AV1, right? And one of the reasons is because encoding is still very expensive, right? Encoding times compared to X264 being a VideoLAN project also it's quite difficult to have good encoders. And well, fast enough, right? So now that it's by default on Chrome and possible to activate, we see more and more small shops, but there is nothing massive except the big ones.
Okay. What's the the most publishers seem to prefer hardware decode, particularly on mobile, because it gives them both 30 frames per second or 60 frames per second, and it doesn't decay battery life. What what can you tell me to make me feel better about deploying AV1 on a mobile device that doesn't have a hardware decoder but has the David decoder?
So one of the things that we've seen is that in some cases, actually software decoding is faster than hardware. It's also sometimes, especially at low resolution and low bit rates, it's sometimes not increasing the battery, increasing the power consumption. Because, well, the hardware decoders on the software are basically DSPs, right? So you have to turn them on in order to do the decoding. So on lower resolution, lower bit rates, the differences in battery life is not that big, right? But as soon as you start going up, then it starts to become important. It's a trade-off, right? And I know that some people are looking at streaming AV1 on lower bit rates and then stop doing that on higher bit rates because that's where they think they will find the most gains and also the most without killing too much the battery. Because of course, AV1 decoding in software, mostly when you have 10, 20 megabits per second, this is expensive. And mostly the most expensive part is the entropy decoding.
So given what you know about the publishers that you're speaking to, what's your projection about AV1 usage going forward?
I think that is my prediction. And here we're talking about only web streaming, right? So like OTT, right? Let's put aside broadcast, which is a very different world. The thing is, I think that AV1 will increase its presence compared to H264 by quite a bit, and it's going to take time. Everyone will have an H264 profile, but everything that is HEVC and VP9 will go. We will keep H264, and then the next step will be AV1. Everything out of that is gone, or will be gone, or so small that no one will care about them. Mostly because it's going to cost too much. It's going to cost too much to have all of the decoders on the die, right? So chip manufacturers will have to make decisions, and the question will be, do I keep VP9? Does it make sense, right? Do I keep VP8? Does it make sense when AV1 is around the corner? So my point is that people will have a 264 decoding, and then everything which will be HDR will be AV1.
Okay. What are you thinking about VVC versus AV1, and I guess at some point AV2?
VVC is dead. I don't care, right? Like let's be honest, right? With 2024, HEVC is nowhere. The reason where it's nowhere is because of their patent pools, which is completely impossible to understand, right? We of course talking about and you know more than me, but what I've seen is HEVC Advanced, MPEG-LA, and then you have Qualcomm, which is outside of every patent pool, and Nokia, which turned into what, like, let's call them what they are, a patent troll, right? So those people are outside of the pool, right? So it's very difficult to license HEVC, and that's basically the biggest issue about HEVC, right? It's a great codec, right? Let's be honest, it's a great codec. We are 10 years after the HEVC, and we're talking about single digits, right, of usage outside of. So HEVC, it's gone. VVC is great. And also what they did on VVC that I like is that the complexity of decoding is not that big compared to the gain that they have, right? At the beginning, I expected VVC to be extremely slow and more slow than it actually is, right? So that it's a good surprise. But it's based on HEVC and all those patterns, and you just make the situation worse, right? So unless they fix their patent situation, which I don't believe they will, right? They managed for 10 years to not fix their patents issue on HEVC. Why would they do it on HEVC, on VVC, right? So for me, like, and also like what the big gains, right? For HDR, VVC works. So the biggest question is China. It seems that China is betting big on VVC. And so in China, the answer is very different, but the Chinese market is quite different. In China, I think VVC will be big because it's the first, let's call it, main codec, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the major point I would disagree is the HDR and premium content, in which I guess is not where you play a lot of the time. But what's your sense of where AV1 is right now with respect to HDR? It obviously it's not in Dolby Vision, but where is it with the other HDR standards, and how
But
do you support it? And
I think there is a Dolby Vision profile, 8.4. 10.4, I don't remember, but
oh, like
there is now a Dolby Vision profile for AV1.
I've seen different. I've heard about that, and I looked it up, and I couldn't verify that, but I'll go
No, no,
back
no,
and
no, no,
check.
no, no. I'm quite sure about that because some people have asked us to support that into FFmpeg to take some normal HEVC in with Dolby Vision and output that as a AV1 with it. So I think that no, now there is everything you need on AV1, but yes, it took a lot of time. And and also, like, people don't understand that the biggest issue with HDR is not how you transport information, but how do you master it, right? How do you offer it, right? And the reasons why Dolby Vision is everywhere and becomes so big is that they have all the tools, right? And all the testing, right? Because testing HDR is a very difficult project.
So what's happening to fix that within the AV1 development structure? It
So
feels like.
I
Go
think
ahead.
now on AV1, you have a way to transport HDR10, HDR10 plus, AV1, both in PQ and HLG along the metadata, right? And AV1 now supports 8, 10, and 12 bits. So in theory now, it should be doable.
Okay, and that all plays on VLC as well as smart TVs that support it.
Sure, of course. VLC has now a library which is called LibLacebo, which does basically all the form. It's a GPU filter library which is doing basically all the HDR to mappings, so HDR to SDR, but also HDR to HDR and all of those. So it's a VideoLAN project also called LibLacebo. Some people are not happy because it's very focused on GPU filters, but all that is part of VLC4. And so we can play all those type of
Okay.
HDR. And also, I think that people don't know that library enough while it's doing a ton of magic into shaders for color conversions.
And so people can find you. You're going to be at Mile High next week. Are you speaking or just attending?
I think I'm speaking. I'm doing a demo, but I need to check that.
Yeah, you better check that. How about NAB? You going to be there as well?
Probably. I usually go to NAB every year. What I do is that every other year I have a booth. I think it's going to be a year where I don't have a booth at NAB, but manning a booth takes time.
No, I hear you. So how does a nonprofit make money? I mean, how do you monetize 400 million viewers? I mean, that's
I don't.
tremendous, no?
Like,
You don't?
it's easy, right? I don't. Like, VideoLAN has no money. VideoLAN has no, VideoLAN has, like, the money we receive is donation, right? And we use those donations to host the servers, manage our trademarks, have the CI, travels for the conferences and so on. So that's basically what we do as part of VideoLAN. The people who are working on VLC or FFmpeg or Placebo or David have actual jobs. And some of those jobs are consulting companies. And that's basically their main jobs, which is used to develop FFmpeg and VLC, right? So that's, I got with 3 companies which are doing that. One on VLC, one on FFmpeg, one on X264, and one on real-time video.
How many years do you have to work there before you get one of those fancy hats?
I think that's easy because like that's a question that often people ask, and the answer is just send the patch to VLC, right? But the truth is, people who asked me for it just get it. I think they cost $2 on Amazon, right? It's ridiculous.
Okay, listen, thanks for taking the time. Enjoy Mile High. Say hello to the NetInt people there, and I may run into you at NAB.
Thanks. Good luck.
My pleasure. Take care.